Welcome back to the show. Now get interactive. You can leave your comments on our social media handles. We are live on Facebook. We are live on YouTube. We are live on X. And of course, on myjoyonline.com. Now, poverty, lack of education, and interference from persons in high offices, including traditional authorities and politicians, have been identified as major factor working against Ghana's effort at ending human trafficking. According to Deputy Attorney General Diana Asuna-Badapa, despite government interventions, including the passage of relevant laws, these factors continue to affect her office efforts at prosecuting perpetrators of the crime. She spoke on the sidelines at the National Justice Conference of the International Justice Mission here in Accra.
Government frontline, we have managed to pass the Human Trafficking Act, which is the substantial law, and the related regulations to that law to ensure that we proclaim and states unequivocally our stance on human trafficking, condemn it, provide measures for prosecution, and also together with other government units such as the Anti-Human Trafficking Unit of the Ghana Police Service, also at the Social Welfare Department, even at the Ministry of Labour and Employment Relations. We work with all these government institutions to ensure that we not only prevent, but also we hold perpetrators accountable for human trafficking. And so on the substantial front, in terms of passage of laws, in terms of establishing relevant units, as I've indicated, to help with it. But we also do recognize that the role of other international organizations, NGOs, particularly like IJM, is key. I think I mentioned some of the help, which is commendable, that IJM is giving, ensuring that they provide us with some data, ensuring that in terms of resources, they assist the office, particularly our office in the Volta region, to prosecute some of these perpetrators of human trafficking. Public sensitization is very key, and of course we also need to be very alert, you know, as a community, to be able to report some of these things. And of course, I mentioned largely some of the problems we encounter when we are prosecuting some of these perpetrators is for members within the community to purport to interfere in the prosecution, either through lobbying or luring and through threats of death and other things. I think it's a whole community responsibility on all of us. So government, we're doing our bit, but we relish the continued support of all of us.
Well, meanwhile, the Volta and Oti regions continue to lead as hotspots for human and child trafficking, according to the International Justice Mission Ghana, as they called for community engagement to help reintegrate victims into society. Anita Abudu is the country rep for International Justice Mission here in Ghana.
When it comes to trafficking within our borders, the source and destination communities we have identified are within the Greater Accra region, Central region, Volta, Oti regions, and Northern regions, also within the Western region. So really we would say that trafficking can happen anywhere. There are some key areas or some key hotspots, and these are the regions that I've mentioned. However, it doesn't mean that trafficking doesn't happen in other areas. I think for all of us, we need to be aware and alert at all times to know that trafficking and exploitation, somebody being taken into another situation and being exploited, can happen within your country, within your neighborhood, and it can also happen across borders. And so people being taken to various countries and being exploited within labor, within situations of sexual exploitation, these all happen in our context here in Ghana. It is very real that quite often the work of our justice sector actors, there are people who seek to interfere in the legal processes, not only community members but also people of influences, and we really need to be able to see how we can halt this and let the rule of law do its work here in Ghana. I would say another part of the challenge that I mentioned earlier is around collaboration, coordination with all our state actors. We heard earlier on the panel discussions how we can improve communication, coordination between the Department of Social Welfare, the police, and the Office of the Attorney General. Again, there has been progress, but we need to move further. But again, within other international NGOs, local NGOs, community organizations, we all have a role to play. We all have different areas where we are specialists in. As part of the 4 Ps, we talked about partnership.
So we will interrogate this matter, but also take you live to Parliament because there is a development there. The Trade Ministry is seeking to lay an LI in the House that will, restrict how cement can be sold on the Ghanaian market. But joining us in the studio now is the lead state attorney for the Volta and the Oti regions, prosecuting human trafficking related cases, Andrew Doji Aduku, for more on this very important discussion. Remember also that we'll take you to the court because Richard Jakpa, the third accused in the ambulance trial, is undergoing cross-examination by the Deputy Attorney General. But for now, Andrew Doji Aduku is state prosecutor for the Oti and the Volta regions. And we are talking about child trafficking and the fact that that's making it so difficult for successful prosecution. Mr. Aduku, you're welcome to the post.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
Right. So how prevalent is this matter in these two regions?
Well, because of the Volta Lake, we have people being trafficked from various places to the lake to work, to be exploited. And we know because we are also close to the border, we have people who are being trafficked for various offenses. But when it comes to the lake, it's very prevalent. It's a very difficult situation that we do have over there, that we are trying our best as the Office of the Attorney General to ensure that we do one of the 4 Ps, which is prosecution.
And then your focus is on the children, right?
Yeah, the focus generally is on, of the crime of human trafficking, but because majority of the people who are sent for these kind of offenses or to work on the lake, they are exploited on the lake, majority of them are children.
And when we talk about children, which age bracket are we talking about?
So you can have as young as 4.
4 years?
Yes,
and 4 years. Labor on
exactly,
the lake.
Exactly. They are saying as very young, and you would be surprised by the kind of work that they do. And it's a situation that needs a lot of attention, for which the Office of the Attorney General is really making sure that we ensure a lot of prosecution to nip this situation in the mud. In
fact, we've run some stories on, how children are exploited on the lake, and not only boys, but some fishermen are also trading sets for fish in all of these areas, especially in the Volta region and parts of the central region. But again, you are at the center where you are trying to make it right in terms of prosecuting those who are violating the law. And so how is it that do you get the cooperation of the community? Because the communities have always insisted, because of poverty, they are left with no choice than to allow their children to work on the lake.
Yes, I think let me make the first point that the Office of the Attorney General has taken this matter of human trafficking very seriously. So when it comes to even prosecution of human trafficking, we have focal persons for prosecution of human trafficking in the Volta region, the Greater Accra region, we have the Central region, and in all other regions, we are taking human trafficking seriously. So we have built capacity. The office has built the capacity of state attorneys and police prosecutors to be able to prosecute these offenses. So first of all, there's a desk for human trafficking.
Right.
So there's a go-to place when you talk about issues of human trafficking. And all the state attorneys who are employed in the Office of the Attorney General, who especially go into prosecution, are taking through training on human trafficking. Now, on the issue of how we are dealing with it on the ground,
exactly,
we are collaborating with the police to ensure that these cases are expedited. Because the moment you arrest somebody for the offense of human trafficking, you need to put everything together and put them in, you put them before the court in the shortest possible time. And you need to get your acts together, because you naturally will not have a lot of shelters to be able to house these children who have been rescued. And you can have sometimes as many as 10, as many as 20 children who have been rescued. And you have to do the various interviews with Department of Social Welfare available, and they have also been very supportive. And you put all of these together, and you have to put the accused persons also before court. And you know what happens if you put them before court and they are granted bail,
they
and
go back
the
to the
bail is
community.
executed. Of course, sometimes they go to the community. Then you are looking at where you're going to keep these kids. If you do not have a shelter, where you're going to keep these kids, how you're going to feed them. Remember, they are in a new environment. They are going to speak a different language from what they were used to. The routine they were used to, which they thought was very normal. They are not going to be used to that particular routine. So it takes a lot to be able to prosecute human trafficking cases. And I believe the Office of the Attorney General is doing its best in this particular regard, because the records show over the last 4 or 5 years, or even the last 6 years, that we've got a lot of convictions. So we moved from the Tier 2 watch list to Tier 2. And we are doing a lot, and I believe that you are hearing even a lot more about human trafficking.
Of course, yes.
Because we are doing a lot of prosecutions. And we want to say kudos to the Attorney General, who is giving us strong backing to be able to continue this particular work that we
So in terms of the prosecution, those who have been successful in getting conviction, what category do they fall in? Are they parents of the case that were engaged in this child labor, or those they were working for? I mean, what kind of people have you been able to prosecute? We
have been able to prosecute majority of the people who call boat masters, including their spouses and others who have transported these kids within the chain of the commission of the crime. Mm-hmm. In some rare cases, we have had some parents who were actively involved in human trafficking. They gave their children out, they expected monies to be paid, or they were expecting a cow or things like that to be given to them. For those parents where we found that they were involved, they have the intention to let their children go for their children to be exploited. The key word is about exploitation of their children. For those parents, we have been able to prosecute them, and we have ensured that they have had the punishment that they need.
So in terms of the transaction, when for example, you say that a parent gave the child out in exchange for a cow, does it constitute selling of the child?
So yes, so literally we say constitute selling of the child. It's not just about giving the child out. It's not about just transferring the child. It's about transferring the child for the purpose of exploitation, whether it's within the national borders or it's across the national borders. And when we talk about exploitation, we are talking about forced labor, we are talking about induced prostitution, slavery, bonded placement, and things like that. And I believe that for most of these parents, it's either they are doing this intentionally or maybe they may be acting in ignorance. But I believe with the advocacy which you are doing, and I want to say thank you for giving us this platform to do this advocacy, that we have passed the time of advocacy. Even though we talk about advocacy, we need to ensure that people who intentionally allow their children to be exploited by making them go and work on the lake in very dangerous and inhumane situations are prosecuted to serve as a deterrence to others. But whilst we also do prosecution, we are talking about how best we can reintegrate these children, because when you do this
into society,
into the society. So there needs to be a concerted effort from various agencies and from various institutions to be able to nip this in the bud, because we need everybody on board. It's not only the work of the Office of the Attorney General or maybe the police prosecutors to do this prosecution, but we need all on board. You in the media, those with GPRTU, anybody who is involved with children, anybody who wants to see that these children grow to become very good people should get involved to be able for us to be able to nip this in the bud.
But for the parents, I know that ignorance of the law is no excuse. But listening to them, do you get a sense that they've been doing this because of poverty, and that because they are unable to take care of their children, they feel that by offloading them, if you like, to people who work, to go and work as laborers, they are doing them good? And do they pay the parents in return for the work they do for these boat masters?
So the first point I want to say is that any parent who allows his child to be exploited, the key word is exploitation. See, there's the minimum age for light work, and there are certain works children are allowed to do. Anything that you do that jeopardizes the education of your child, the health of your child, the safety of your child, you as a parent, you have a duty to ensure that your children are well protected. So if you're giving your child out for somebody to use to use on the lake in conditions where maybe that child does not even know how to swim, a very young child, go underwater to a disentangled net in water bodies which have tree stumps and stuff like that, then you are obviously endangering that child. So for us, the key thing we look at is that what is the intention of that particular parent? And I get the argument about poverty. But I believe that there are a lot of poor people who are doing their best to be able to take care of their children. So even though we may look at the argument of poverty, but we're also looking behind the poverty. Is this parents just giving birth and allowing these children to suffer so that they gain? Because at the end of the day, if you are getting all these benefits, why are the children not getting, the benefit of it? Why would you sacrifice your child for such a very, dangerous venture?
All right, Andrew, I'll come back to you to ask you about the obstacles you are facing in terms of getting prosecution, and also how many you've been successful, perhaps in the last 2 or 3 years. But let me take our viewers to the High Court now, because the cross-examination of Richard Japa for the 3rd day is over. Lateef Idris is at the court and he has the very latest. So Lateef, what is happening now?
Okay, so Elton, as we just saw in the video, we have at the forecourt of the law court complex for the first time protesters marching up here, protesting and showing their support for the minority leader of parliament, Dr. Cassiel Ato Forson, who is the first accused in the ongoing ambulance procurement trial, which the state says it lost some 2.37 million euros in the process. For the first time today, we also have traditional rulers from the central region coming in court, sitting just behind the minority leader of parliament, also in solidarity of Dr. Cassiel Ato Forson. Today's appearance in court is a bit different from the regular. Even for one to get access into the courtroom today, you have to go through a lot of security checks. This hasn't been the case until today. So just maybe intelligence security agencies picked was that this was going to happen, and so they put in place measures to prevent it from escalating into something else. So that is what you have here. Protesters here at the court protesting, showing their support for the minority leader of parliament, Dr. Cassiel Ato Forson. We also have the central regional chairman of the opposition, NDC, also showing up here to support Dr. Cassiel Ato Forson. We have members of parliament showing up. For instance, Suhini is someone we could point out and say, he is a member of parliament of the opposition party. He has showed up here to also show his solidarity for the leader of the minority in parliament. Now, what is happening right now in court upstairs is that Richard Jakpa, his mouth has been sealed for now, which means that prosecution would now halt their cross-examination of Richard Jakpa at this point. But the court has been cleared of quote-unquote uninterested parties. So those in the courtroom right now are only the parties, and I'm talking about Dr. Cassiel Ato Forson, Richard Jakpa, prosecution, lawyers for Richard Jakpa, and lawyers for Dr. Cassiel Ato Forson. They are the only ones within the courtroom right now because the trial judge says there is something she needs to clarify. And so the rest of us are out of the courtroom waiting for them to come out to tell us exactly what they agreed on with the trial judge. But before that, we have some of the NDC opposition members coming out. So we do not know if whatever the trial judge had with the parties is resolved, and then they could go ahead and speak to us. But we would come back to that briefly. Just to run us through what exactly the focus of the cross-examination has been today. And let's put on record that right in the middle of the cross-examination today, the Attorney General himself, Godfred Dame, jumped in and took over the cross-examination from his deputy, that is Richard Alfred Tuayeboa. We'll get back to that shortly, but let's first of all listen to Sammy Gyamfi, who is the National Communications Director of the Opposition NDC. He's going to address the media shortly. We cannot miss that. After that, we'll bring you details of today's cross-examination, which has focused largely on the seal and also the contract between Big C and the government of Ghana. So, Sammy Gyamfi.
Well, as the Dishonorable Attorney General Godfred Dame has consistently demonstrated or displayed, today you saw a display of ignorance and illiteracy on very basic things that you expect a person who occupies such high office to understand. But before I go into those issues, it's important for us to respond to certain reckless and irresponsible comments that have been made by the Dishonorable Attorney General Godfred Yeboah-Dame. I'm sure that over the last few days you've seen videos of the Attorney General somewhere in London in the United Kingdom claiming that the case of the accused persons have crumbled under cross-examination. It is important to put it on record that the only person whose case has crumbled, the only person who has been exposed as a crooked character, a dishonorable character, and a liar throughout the proceedings is not Mr. Jakpa, neither is it Honorable Ato Forsen, but rather Godfred Yeboah-Dame. You would recall that when Mr. Jakpa dropped his bombshell of 23rd May 2024 and asserted in open court under oath that the Attorney General has sought to coerce and impress upon him to implicate the Honorable Ato Forsen, the Attorney General issued a press release. And in that press release, he was categorical that he has not met or contacted or sought the cooperation of any of the accused persons. He was categorical. It's been established beyond every reasonable doubt that that claim by the Attorney General was palpable falsehood. He lied. Because he himself has indeed confirmed in open court that contrary to what he stated in that press release, he's been meeting Jakpa at odd hours. He's been calling him, he's been texting him. Yet, he claimed to the media that he had not at any point in time made contact with Mr. Jakpa or any of the accused persons. You will also recall a claim by the spokesperson of the Attorney General that the Attorney General was entrapped. He never set out to meet Mr. Jakpa anywhere, but that it was a Supreme Court judge who sought to meet him at his residence only for him to be ambushed by Mr. Jakpa. That has also turned out to be a lie, because you've seen from the evidence adduced, during cross-examination by Mr. Jakpa, that indeed it was the Attorney General who first suggested a meeting at the residence of the said Supreme Court judge. He's the only one who has been proven to be a liar, to be a dishonorable character as far as these proceedings are concerned. You recall that when, in the aftermath of that bombshell by Mr. Jakpa, Godfred Dame actually issued a statement and claimed publicly that he had a video of Ato Forsen coming to him to beg him to drop this case. Where is the video? You media men have got silence. You are not asking for that video. You are not asking the right questions relative to that claim. Where is that video? At least we said we had an audio tape showing unprofessional and criminal conduct on his part. We promised to put that out. We have put that out. They lied that the tape was doctored. In court, they could not substantiate that claim of the tape being doctored. The tape has actually been added into evidence as authentic. So throughout these proceedings, it is Godfred Dame who has been exposed over and over again as a liar. He's the one whose case has crumbled, and not Ato Forsen or Richard Jakpa. Now, it is also important to note that as we speak, Godfred Dame has not been able to swear any oath, any affidavit to deny any of these allegations. He rather sought the services of a state attorney at his office to deny the assertions for him. Today, he was confronted by Mr. Jakpa again with those same assertions, and you could not rebut those assertions. So clearly, Godfred Dame is a sinking man who is clutching onto straws, trying to obfuscate issues and confuse lay men, and we must treat those irresponsible comments he made in London with a pinch of salt and the contempt it deserves. But on what happened today, first of all, you saw the Deputy Attorney General urging on Mr. Jakpa that the conversation he had with Godfred Dame was a 26-minute conversation. But some of their communicators have been making that argument, and that they only brought to court a 16 minutes audio recording, trying to impugn the authenticity of that tape. But Mr. Jakpa reiterated the point we have always made, and you couldn't see the Attorney General push back, which was that he recorded that 16 minutes, 5 seconds tape about 9 to 10 minutes into the conversation, and there is nothing wrong with that. If you call me for a conversation, and in good faith I have the conversation with you without recording, but I see that you are proceeding on a criminal tangent, at some point I can choose to record. If I even record 1 second of that conversation, and that 1 second tape captures you committing a crime, telling me to falsify my testimony, telling me to testify to your theory and what you know to be true and not what I know to be true, telling me to procure a fake medical excuse and all that. It doesn't matter that it is a 1 second tape. What matters is whether or not you said what is contained on that tape. And today, Jakpa, reiterated that point very, very beautifully. Also, you saw bare denials by the Deputy Attorney General for and on behalf of his boss about the fact that the AG told Mr. Jakpa to lie about a fake medical excuse duty because he had intimated in the conversation they had that he was sick. That clearly is not borne out by the evidence because no such claim is contained on that tape. Mr. Jakpa dared them to provide that evidence if they had it, and they couldn't provide it because there is no such evidence. In the words of Mr. Jakpa, he was fit as a fiddle on the morning of 9th April 2024 and was driving to his lawyer when the Attorney General, who is supposed to be the leader of the bar and Minister of Justice, and therefore supposed to be an apostle of the ethics of the profession, told him to lie to the courts, to contrive a fake medical excuse duty and commit a crime. And today he made that point. You saw that the AG could not push back. Again, he reiterated his point that Ken Ofori-Atta and President Akufo-Addo had been mounting pressure on the Attorney General to pursue a clear case of witch hunts. And that this was what Godfred Dami told him. They sought to deny, but he reinforced it, and they could not push back with any credible, fact or evidence. Neither could they dispute the claim by Jakpa that at one of the meetings he had with the Attorney General at the residence of Justice Kolendi, the Attorney General, the Honorable Godfred Dami, actually said that fancies are cheap, and that if Honorable Atoforsen Perish that thought is convicted, they will have the opportunity to hold a by-election and influence fancies with money. Well, we have news for Godfred Dami and the MPP. Fancies are not cheap. They are very discerning. And they demonstrated that at Assange when, in spite of the monetization and the attempt to influence them with money, they voted in line with good conscience, voted for the Honorable Jachi Kwesi. So they are terribly wrong if they think that fancies are cheap people. But I know that the good people of the central region will take these issues into consideration.
A quick one. How surprised would you say you were when you saw the Attorney General himself in the middle of cross-examination by his deputy, jumping in, taking over to go at Richard Jakpa? Were you surprised in any way? And where do you see him going with his line of questioning?
Well, I'm not surprised because what he's doing is playing hide and seek. You see, on issues that border on assertions, evidence given about Mr. Jakpa, about the person of the Attorney General, he's running away. He's not able to bite the bullet. He's not able to stand up to Jakpa and cross-examine him. He's not able to confront Jakpa with any contrary evidence. So, Wafa lawyer, and his lawyer is either Evelyn, the DPP, or his poor deputy from my region, Tuyayeboa. So they are doing that dirty work for him because he himself lacks the courage to confront Mr. Jakpa on those assertions that borders on his person. The man says you met him around 12 a.m. on the 9th of 26 March. True or false? That one you want Tuyayeboa, poor Tuyayeboa to do that for you? The man says you told him that fancies are cheap. The man says you told him that Ken Ofori-Atta and Akufo-Addo were giving you pressure to persecute Atoforsen. Tuyayeboa was not there. You and I were not there. Only Godfred Dami was there. Why can't he do that cross-examination? Always shifting the goalpost. You understand? That is the game he's playing. I was not surprised at all. Even on the issues he himself has decided to pursue under cross-examination, which is about the terms of the contracts, the role of Jakpa and all that, he is displaying ignorance. This is an Attorney General who, you heard on that tape we released, was misconstruing a letter of credit as advance payment. Clear illiteracy. He thinks that a letter of credit that has clear condition precedence, it constitutes advance payment. Clear illiteracy. Today, too, you heard him in open court suggesting that an ISO certification, which is renewed annually and which is acquired by duly incorporated entities, organizations, companies, for purposes of quality assurance. He was confusing an ISO certification with an incorporation documentation. He thinks that if you see an ISO certificate, it is a certificate of a registration of a company. This man is bankrupt in knowledge about the issues before the court. He is a walking shame, a walking embarrassment. And he continues to make, he continues to ridicule himself because he clearly doesn't understand the issues he's pushing. What is the issue about whether or not Mr. Gyamfi passed a promotional examination? What does that got to do with this case? What is the issue about some so-called 68 messages which Gyamfi refused to provide a court? Which messages, 90%, constitute motivational messages that Mr. Gyamfi has been broadcasting to people on his list? What is the relevance of those so-called motivational messages to the case at heart? The guy has been wasting everybody's time in court. You understand? And contriving to the extent that they are even contriving official government documents. You saw Mr. Gyamfi trying to make that point. The rules, of course, didn't allow that, and so the judge did not allow that. But I know that an opportunity will be created by his lawyers for him to make that point very forcefully. This issue about his release letter from the military and why he was released from the military and all that are issues that will be strongly contested with evidence, because Gyamfi maintains that what they have brought to court is clearly fake, doctored, and contrived. But all these issues have got nothing to do with the critical issues at stake. Did Ato Forson have authorization to write those letters or not? His boss, the finance minister, Setekpe, has come to court to say, I authorize him. They are saying that even though you say you authorize him, give us paper. How many ministers of state write letters to their deputies when authorizing them on a daily basis to take action, or when delegating responsibility to them? Master, is that the standard practice? That if Godfred Ame is giving his deputy Tuyan Yeboah a delegated responsibility, he must always write. Setekpe says, I authorize him. He's Ato Forson on the face of the letter signed for the minister. He kept the minister in copy. The minister, knowing the consequences of his admission that he authorized Ato Forson, has come to court and said, if at all anything wrong was done, because nothing wrong was done, but if at all anything wrong was done, you have the wrong man, because I authorize him. That one to you say you don't want it, because President Akufo-Addo is giving you pressure to go after Ato Forson because you think Fantas are cheap. You think Fantas are fools. You understand? I believe so. I believe so. But what you see here is just symbolic. It is just, a reflection of the outreach that an overwhelming majority of Fantas across the country feel, the revulsion they feel about this distasteful, comment that was made by the Attorney General. And the most important thing is that till date he has not been able to dispute it. He himself has not been able to swear an oath. Master, ask Godfred Ame when he comes out of the court, that why can't you swear an oath like Gyamfi has sworn an oath testifying to these issues? If Gyamfi lies under oath, there will be consequences. He can go to jail for perjury. Godfred Ame doesn't want to go under oath because of two things. Once he swears an oath, he knows that he can be cross-examined. He is afraid of cross-examination. Number two, he knows that if he swears an oath and lies, that he never met Gyamfi. He never told him Fantas are cheap. He never told him to contrive a fake medical excusity. He never told him to implicate Ato Forson. When he peddled those lies, not in a press release, but under oath, he knows he can be prosecuted tomorrow for the offense of perjury. That is what he's running away from. And you allow him to get off the hook, and today he has the effrontery. This crooked, dishonorable character has the effrontery to go and stand in London and run his mouth. When you are the first Attorney General in the history of this country who has been reprimanded by a court of competent jurisdiction as having brought or occasioned discomfiture, in other words, embarrassment to the courts, having undermined the judicial process, for which reason you have been advised to stay away from the proceedings, and you are refusing to heed the advice. And if you will not heed advice, come and cross-examine to kwani, hide and seek. When it is about issues about your person, you are dodging like a coward sitting in your chair, whispering into the ears of your deputy. Why can't you do the cross-examination yourself?
You keep referring to the deputy as, or what do you mean?
Who?
You keep referring to...
Oh, because what is his role in this matter? What is his role in this matter? In all the meetings they had under the cover of darkness, he was not there. And it is very sad that he has allowed himself to be used this way. Because you were not there. And yet you are putting it to Mr. Jakpa that my boss never told you that Francis are cheap. Were you there? Were you there?
It's a prosecution case, you would agree?
It's the case of the prosecution. But it's CSA. Was he there? I put it to you, was he there?
Should that not strengthen your case rather?
Of course, it strengthens our case. And it also allows us the opportunity to make these arguments, exposing the Attorney General. He is a coward. If he thinks that what Jakpa is saying are not true, he should confront him under cross-examination. At least
So that's the communication officer of the National Democratic Congress, Sammy Gyamfi. We'll take you back when the Attorney General and his deputies are out of the court to also get their reaction to today's hearing in court. But the matter relates to the ambulance trial, which is still ongoing. Richard Jakpa, the third accused, was cross-examined by the Deputy Attorney General today. Sammy Gyamfi was giving his reaction about what transpired in the courtroom today. We'll take you back to the courthouse when the Attorney General or his deputies are out, as we also seek their reaction to today's hearing. We'll also take you to the Electoral Commission office, where CSOs, that civil society organizations, are engaged in the Electoral Commission ahead of the December 7th election. They are asking for transparency in the electoral process. We are also in Parliament because there's an attempt by the Trade and Industry Minister to lay a legislative instrument that will regulate cement prices in the country. Today, he appeared before the Substantiate Legislation Committee at a pre-laying conference to determine whether the airline has any space in the mother law, that is the Ghana Standards Authority law. These are matters we are keeping an eye on, will be ordered to you. But we are in court. As soon as the Attorney General or his deputies are out and you have a reaction, we'll take you live to the court. This is the pause. But let me bring you back to the studio, because I also have a lawyer in the studio. But we are not talking about the ambulance trial. We are talking about kidnapping and child labor, especially on the voter league. Andrew Georgie Aduku is still here with me. So Andrew, before we went on that break to the court, I asked about the challenges you are facing in your prosecution. We've heard about intervention sometimes by chiefs, by opinion leaders, and even politicians, whilst you are undertaking your lawful duty.
Well, I mean, Elton, that's precisely the case. You get some interferences from some people because, first of all, they don't appreciate that human trafficking is a serious crime. And it's an international crime, it's an organized crime. And also some think that, well, we can't be influenced. But I must say that the Office of the Attorney General has fared very well when it comes to sticking with prosecution of these particular cases, and we have not allowed people
this interference to frustrate your work.
To frustrate our work. But, I mean, the mere fact that somebody is interfering in your work already is taking your time off to listen to them or stuff like that. And it's generally also the same way with the police who are prosecuting matters of human trafficking. But these are some of the challenges that we face in our work. Aside that also, I mean, the fact that you do not have shelters also poses, you do not have enough shelters, let me make that point, also poses a difficult situation for us where you have rescued a number of children.
And don't know where to take them or where to care for them. Because you cannot take them back to the very society you are trying to get them out.
Exactly. And, for some of them also, they may have been brainwashed and told that if these people come for you, they are not going to do anything good for you. They would behave as if they like you and later, do something to you. They have been brainwashed to think that way. So issue of shelter is another thing. Then one other challenge is the length of the trial, because the system that we have in Ghana means that the person has to come and testify in person in court. What would mean is that if you're keeping this child who has been rescued in maybe somewhere in Ashanti region or somewhere where there's a shelter, you need to transport this child and bring this child. So if you're looking at the length of the trial,
does it look like a witness protection sort of a thing?
Well, generally what we have is, the system that we have is that the witness must testify in person.
Right.
We probably may have to get to the point where we allow video conferencing, testimonies, and things like that to be able to help people to testify. Maybe another point I wish to make is that in this particular age, what we can be looking at to ensure that we deal with these matters more expeditiously is what we refer to as a block trial. So a block trial may be a day-to-day trial or giving ourselves, let's say, 2 weeks or 3 weeks or even a month to do this. And this can be done if there's enough collaboration between the courts, the prosecutors themselves, the various witnesses who are going to serve to serve as the various people are going to come and testify, and also lawyers for the accused persons, and for those who do not have lawyers, probably
the state providing one for them.
Exactly, state providing one for them, so that we ensure that their rights are protected and to deal with it. So, I mean, these and many more challenges that you face. But I must say that the Office of the Attorney General is doing very well in this regard, despite all these challenges. We are doing an excellent work with prosecutions.
So I just want to find out, I mean, in the last 2 or 3 years, how many people have you been able to put behind bars?
So with the Office of the Attorney General, I can count not less than 3 convictions.
Wow.
Not less than 3. And there are trials which are going on. But just as I mentioned, we'll need a concerted effort to be able to get this done. And I believe that once people rally behind the Office of the Attorney General and give us the necessary support, we'll be able to overcome this. We need to get to the point where Ghana is declared free of human trafficking, because the fact that we are even tagged with human trafficking reduces the investment that we get into.
Of course, we are facing issues with the EU in terms of export of our cocoa, because they have clear policy on child labor.
Yes, exactly.
You cannot engage your child to help you in the farms, and because of that, there's danger that some of our cocoa that we export to the European market may be banned. They are clear on these matters.
Yes. So I think the point also must be made that the Attorney General, the Director of Public Prosecutions, and all the regional heads, and even the focal persons on human trafficking are putting a lot of effort. You know, you sometimes have to go just beyond your normal working hours to ensure that you put all of this together. There are times where state attorneys may have to stay late into the night to be able to accommodate these witnesses, prepare their statements, and put everything. Remember, we are not only dealing with human trafficking, we are dealing with all other cases.
Yeah, because yes, I was coming to whether, so in terms of child trafficking and child labor that you are dealing with, does it only relate to what you see on the voter list, or there are other forms that constitute this crime that you've been
sex
prosecuting?
Exploitation, any other form of trafficking.
That people give their children out for prostitution?
For purpose of sex, and people are trafficked, very young girls are trafficked from other countries, even are trafficked from Ghana to other countries to perform issues of, sex, prostitution and things like that. What do you call hookup? I mean, people are told that you're going to work in the boutique. They get there and they realize that they are engaged in forced prostitution. The people take the monies away from them. So we are looking at all forms. So in this case, the parents, did you get a sense that they were aware of what the child was going to do, or they were tricked into giving their children out to go and work as, maid servants or here and there, and they end up undertaking commercial sex? So for some of these parents, they were definitely deceived as to what the children, the normal thing, they won't come and tell you that you're going to do this particular work. They may tell you that we are going to offer your child education, we are going to give them a better life and things like that. So there's some element of deception to be able to take the children away. And once we realize that the trafficker used the element of deception, then obviously you can't blame the parent. But when we realize that this parent knew exactly what the child was going to do, we will take the parent on, because the parents, if they are more vigilant, and I want to use the opportunity to urge parents to be more vigilant. If somebody tells you that I want to come and take your child away, investigate who that person is. At least let somebody go and see where the child is going to stay. Visit the child. And more especially if the person is taking the child to anywhere close to the voter lake, you should not allow your child to go there, because obviously what is going to happen is that your child is going to be exploited, the person's future is going to be disturbed, and the police will come after you, and the Office of the Attorney General, if we find that there's evidence, will definitely do the prosecution, and the law will take its course.
In wrapping up, so, in terms of the advocacy, you've spoken about the fact that you've done a lot of advocacy, so the education has gone down well with the people, and then the prosecution. These two, has it helped in minimizing the instance of child labor and trafficking, or you think that it is still a major issue that we must focus attention more on it?
Well, I think that's a major issue that we need to focus a lot of attention on. We can do more than enough. The advocacy still needs to continue. The advocacy needs to be encouraged in the various faith-based organizations, on TV, on radio, and various announcements on what human trafficking is. We need to have all of that. And I must say that we even have call center lines where you can actually report cases of trafficking. And
is the number available? You can put it out so that...
Well, unfortunately, I just couldn't remember the number.
Right.
We would get that information to you so that you can put that information
Absolutely.
across. But the key thing that you need to understand is that the ministry is doing its work, the Office of the Attorney General, together with the Ministry of Gender, Children, and Social Protection. We are doing our best to ensure this is done. I must also commend the efforts of the International Justice Mission, International Needs Ghana, Expertise France, and all other NGOs who are helping us to get this done. The most important thing we need to understand as a country is that if we are able to nip human trafficking in the bud, then what is going to happen is that we are going to get a brighter future for our children.
Absolutely. People
who are on the lake should be people who want to be on the lake, and they are people who should be committed to do whatever they seek to do. We shouldn't subject our children
to this kind of cruelty.
I mean, there are children who have died on the lake just because of this particular thing. And I believe that you, the media, the members of parliament, people who are in charge of various means of transport, the boats, any form of transport, when you see any child being moved, a number of them being moved unaccompanied or being moved by one particular person, if you see something, say something. And when you come to human trafficking, when you see a child who is being exploited, say something so that we can save that particular child. And that brings me to the Human Trafficking Day that we do have, the Blue Day, coming at the end of July.
Right.
And we want to ask for concerted effort to ensure that we are able to deal with these issues of trafficking. And I must just say, end of this by commending the Honorable Attorney General, the other state attorneys who are ensuring that these prosecutions are done, the judiciary, which is ensuring that when these cases come, they hear it expeditiously, and all other persons who, in one way or the other, help us to get these things done. We really need a lot of hands on board to get these matters resolved.
And my interest is that we are also able to provide shelter that gives them dignified life better than what they were used to before they were rescued.
Precisely, just as you mentioned, we need a lot of shelter. And in fact, we need to get to a point where in every region we have not less than 2 shelters to take care of these children. And I can tell you, for some of them who have survived, some are in the universities, some are doing great stuff. And I can tell you that a life which would have been lost on the Volta Lake has just been saved just by the efforts of the state. And we as a state need to protect these young ones.
All right, thank you so much for coming to Mr. Andrew Doji Aduku. He is a state attorney for the Oti and the Volta region, and they're doing a very fantastic job. Now, we'll take a short break. When we return, we are likely to take you back to the court. We'll take you to Parliament. We'll take you to the Electoral Commission because we have a lot for you. So we cannot take you live to the court now because there is a new reaction.
Cross-examination by his deputy, Alfred Tuayebua.
Okay, so let's hear you. I want to correct some misconception and mischief that is the Attorney General and the government have created and using their surrogate media houses to be peddling falsehoods, twisting proceedings of the court, and then bringing out evidence that I have no idea about and trying to put it on me. I want to address that. The Attorney General brought a pile of documents to the court about my military career. I left the military about 17 years ago. Now, he brought a document purporting that I have committed certain crimes according to the letter. In fact, that letter, I was not copied. I have no knowledge of that letter. And that letter are allegations that are unsubstantiated, unfounded, and I was never confronted with it by the military 17 years ago. And that letter is purported to have been written by one Brigadier General Ahiaglo. You know him? In fact, I know Brigadier General Ahiaglo. He's dead. He's deceased years ago. And he wrote that letter on behalf of the Chief of Army Staff, who was by then Major General Odote. So Brigadier General Ahiaglo was a staff officer to the Chief of Army Staff. So he wrote on behalf of the Chief of Army Staff. So this unfounded allegation that I was never confronted with, I was never made known of, a secret report document that they wrote to the Chief of Staff of the Ghana Armed Forces, who reports to the Chief of Defense Staff, the CDS. I have no knowledge about it. In fact, today is the first day I saw that letter, dated, I think, 22nd or so of 2007, about 17 years ago. Now, in that letter that I have no idea about, they claim I consistently engage in fraudulent conduct. And when you use the word consistent, it means I didn't engage in fraudulent conduct once, several. Yet the military that I know will not countenance such a behavior once, even for it to become consistent, without charging you, trying you, whether by your commanding officer or appropriate superior authority or by a court martial. I've never even gone on an interview on it. I have no knowledge of all those, that such a letter had been written by 7 military officers in order to get me out of the military without my knowledge. I was never made known about that.
But why didn't you make it clear to the court when you were confronted with the document?
I was never given the opportunity. In fact, the Attorney General was so mischievous that he presented a document, asked me to read it per the court rules. I read it, and then after reading it, he jumped into a different area so that I wouldn't have the opportunity to dissect that letter and expose the mischief and the unfounded allegation and the secret diabolical letter that was written in order to paint me black when I was in the armed forces during the MPP's time when they were in power in 2007.
Was that document not part of the disclosures made?
No, it was not part of disclosure. It was just brought today to the court. And in fact, that document has nothing to do with the ambulance case as we are dealing with now, at all.
But you understand they want to undermine your credibility. That's what they are doing. And prosecution is allowed to do that.
I agree. You do that, but then you do that with substantiated, incontrovertible evidence. Not someone who has written a secret document about someone and the person was never confronted. He has no knowledge about it to even defend himself or to even speak to that particular, those allegations. 17 years ago. And the surprising thing about the whole of that document was that what that letter was alleging was not upon which I was released from the service. That's even the surprising thing about it. I was released under a clause in our Armed Forces Administration volume. It's a law, which states that I am being released for lack of application or interest. Lack of application or interest has nothing to do with misconduct and service terminated, which is purely under the discretion of the CDS of the Ghana Armed Forces. So I was not dismayed, I was not released out of misconduct. In fact,
were you released out of indebtedness to several people and institutions, which is part of what you read in Open?
Not at all. In fact, the release quoted the clause in the Armed Forces Administration law, quoted it clearly. And in that law, it talks about lack of application or interest, service terminated. And I was paid all my gratuity fully. The Armed Forces paid my gratuity fully. And also, in the release, there was an arrangement for the Armed Forces to bear the full cost of my transportation of all my household, which as we speak now, they have not even paid it to me.
No, if you look at the document that I was confronted with, do you feel hurt? Does it hurt your case?
No, not at all. In fact, it's a diversionary tactics employed by the Attorney General trying to discredit my credibility because he had engaged himself in criminal conduct and trying to coerce me to commit a crime by implicating Honorable Atuforsen and answering questions to make his case good in court. And also procure a dubious fake excuse duty to deceive the court.
And you say you were as fit as fiddle?
Yes, to deceive the court. And as at the time he was impressing upon me to procure a fake excuse duty, to deceive the judge and the court so he could travel, I was as fit as a fiddle. So I couldn't lie to the court. So I refused.
Why didn't you go to the police station and make the report straight away?
Oh, that is yet to be done because the evidence is still there. And I will wish to remind you, crime against the state has no expiry date. So at any time of my convenience, I can go and...
Mr. Dokwa, were you disappointed that the Attorney General has moved away from your claim that you engaged him on the telephone and he's focusing more on the contract and the LC?
Can you come again? I don't get your question.
Were you disappointed when the Attorney General stepped in? He moved away from your claim that you had an audio conversation with him and is focusing more on the LC and the contract between Government of Ghana and Big C.
Oh, I'm not surprised at all because he had to move away from the audio recording and then the WhatsApp meeting and other things, calls he made to me, he had to run away from because those are incontrovertible evidence. He can't lie about them. There's no way he can lie about them. And they are facts. So he had to run away from them. And now he's gone on the wild goose chase looking for things in the military I left 17 years ago to come and discredit my credibility, which has nothing to do with the substantive case in court. And the court has allowed him to go on that. He spent almost about 10 hours, more than, let's say, about 6 to 8 hours on that expedition. And luckily for me, the evidence he brought from the military contradicts themselves. The release clause contradicts the letter that was written, is purported to have been written by Brigadier General Anyaglo. He was impugning fraudulent conduct, indebtedness to people, without naming the people, without naming the institution. It's just a cooked up story that they've just brought up. And when you even look at the coat of arms of the letter, you can see that it's doctored. Because the coat of arms, the wings of the eagle, is broken.
You didn't point that in the open court.
I wasn't given the opportunity to even delve into the letter, except to just read it so they can go and use it to do their propaganda business on air. If they had been given the opportunity, I would have dissected that letter, shown them how fraudulent that letter is. And they use Brigadier General Anyaglo's signature and his name. And that man is dead. Dead men don't talk. So he's not around to come and answer to those unfounded allegations upon which they are claiming I was released. But the release letter didn't state them, didn't state any misconduct. In fact, it contradicts what is in that letter.
Now,
and that is what is surprising me.
The first time today in court, you had the Attorney General, you had a face-to-face encounter with the Attorney General. How did you feel at the time that he was on his feet to subject you to cross-examination?
You know, the Attorney General only started the cross-examination after we had passed the stage where he engaged himself criminally. He waited after the Deputy Attorney General had passed that stage. Then he came to now deal with the contract issue. I wasn't disappointed because between you and me, this is a man who lacks character. He lacks conscience. He has no respect for any decency. All that matters to him is the end. And he doesn't really care how he achieves it. Whose image he destroys along the way. He doesn't really care.
He made the point that because he rejected your request for a plea bargaining or for you to be used as a prosecution witness, that is why you are doing all these.
That cannot be. The Attorney General had already promised me that I was going to go off at the submission of no case.
So you believe him at that point?
Just hold on. Because to him, I was just a mere agent. But I was being used because as a collateral damage. Because in political trial, there must be a collateral damage. Some people must be sacrificed, and that I should know that. And it's a two-forcing they are going for. So I will go off at the submission of no case. But unfortunately, at the submission of no case ruling, I was asked to open my defense. And even the most amazing aspect of it all is that I was asked to open my defense on a faulty charge, on a non-existent charge. A charge that the Attorney General had not charged me on. But then the court said in his ruling that a prima facie case had been found on me on a different charge that I was not charged on. I have not pleaded guilty to it. I don't even know about that charge. So they didn't establish a prima facie case on the charge that Attorney General charged me on, but rather on a non-existent charge that I didn't plead to. But be as it may, we are at the Court of Appeal on it, on that particular one. And the proceeding at the High Court is still ongoing. That one is passed. We will deal with it at the Appeal Court. It wasn't a proposal. What it was that when he said I was a collateral damage, and I'm just a mere agent and I'll be left off. And I said, then if you know I'm a mere agent and I don't have any obligation to the government, and I'm not also mentioned in the contract, and I didn't have any obligation in the enforcement of the contract, then why didn't you use me as a prosecution witness? It was a question I posed to him. No, as a prosecuting witness. Because if you say that I don't have any question to answer on this, I'm a mere agent, and you still determined to use me, then the best option is to use me as a prosecution witness. You call me and tell me, okay, you know about this contract. We want to use you as a prosecution witness. That is for me to now decide whether I will accept it or not. But for you to, on your own, mischievously and diabolically, decide that you make me a collateral damage because you are on a political trial and you need to jail Atuforsen at all costs because your president and your former finance minister want you to jail him. I don't think that is fair.
When you were confronted with the exhibits, which has to do with the WhatsApp chat between yourself and the Attorney General, in reading it, you got to a point and you said, this message is deleted. Do you recall that very message that was deleted and who deleted it?
No, you know, I started communicating with the Attorney General way back 2022 in February. And you and I know very well, when you are sending a message to somebody and you type a message and you send it and you realize that, oh, you sent the wrong message, you delete it. It's normal in WhatsApp. But if you wait after maybe 3 or 1 week, you are deleting, you can only delete what is on your phone, which is you alone, but you can't delete what is on other person's phone. So you realize that the deleted that I deleted was instant because I sent a wrong message and I just deleted it. And then I sent the right one. That is normal in sending WhatsApp messages. But it's because they are mischievous and he's pretending to be ignorant about how WhatsApp operates. He's just saying that, oh, you deleted something that was relevant. No. I sent a wrong message and I just deleted it instantly and sent the correct one. It's normal in WhatsApp.
What do you make of the point that you ask Mr. Gyamfi a simple question and he has to spend so many minutes, so many time responding to that simple question?
You see, the questions that this mischievous and characterless Attorney General asks in court, you can't answer that question by simply saying yes or no.
But he wanted a yes or no answer.
And he will not get a yes or no answer from me because I'm smarter than him. He is asking for a yes or no answer on a question that deals with my integrity. He is not asking a yes or no answer in respect of the contract. It's about my integrity as a person that he wants to discredit because he has lost his integrity as an Attorney General. So he wants to equalize. So you must understand the motive of the question and deal with it properly and give the background and let the world understand that it's not just a yes or no answer to that mischievous question. People must understand what is behind that question. And that's what I sought to do.
During the cross-examination, before you go, the judge and together with your lawyer on a number of occasions had to advise you to tone down on your use of expletives on the Attorney General when he was cross-examining you.
You realize that the Attorney General was in court. The judge even had to lose her temper and caution him and even said he doesn't want to reprimand him. Because whilst I was answering questions, the Attorney General was sitting on the touchline. He is scared to come in and be in the dock and be cross-examined on his criminal conduct But he's sitting on the touchline and then heckling me and talking whilst I'm answering questions and distracting me. I hope you understand. And the judge had to warn him, caution him, to stop that unprofessional conduct. If he wanted to tell me why I should answer my questions, he should be bold enough, he should have the balls like a man and come and sit in the dock. And then they put questions to him. And let's see whether he will be cited for perjury or not. But coward as he is sitting on the touchline and then stoking the fire and then making provocative comments.
Okay, one last from me. One person that you have consistently mentioned in this whole thing is your cousin, Justice Yoni Kolendi. Somebody say that you have brought up this whole thing as it stands. You put his career on the line.
Oh, that is not so, because right from the beginning, I never mentioned Justice Yoni Kolendi's name in court. It was the prosecution that mentioned his name in court and continue on air through their media surrogates, because they were thinking that the recording that I had made, they thought the recording was made in Justice Yoni Kolendi's house initially. So they were preempting it because the recording had not yet been played. So they thought it was made in Justice Kolendi's house, because the AG knew very well that he had met me in Justice Kolendi's house on several occasions, and we've had meetings. So he was thinking the recording was done there. So he was preempting it. And that's why they went on Justice Yoni Kolendi and trying to put him under the bus. And that is why the Deputy Attorney General wrote that they hadn't met me, they've never had any discussion with me. In fact, he denied it. But later it came out that what he was saying was a lie. Now, when the audio was released, it was clear to the whole world that it wasn't a recording from Justice Yoni Kolendi's house. It was he, Attorney General, who called me on his phone early in the morning, I think around 7:40 or something of that sort, that he called me and tried to impress upon me to commit a crime. So this issue of Justice Yoni Kolendi, they started it. They thought it was from his house, and they went after him.
So after swerving them, what's your relationship with Justice Yoni Kolendi like now?
Justice Yoni Kolendi, we are cousins. We are first cousins. He's my senior brother. He gives me a lot of advice.
Has he become annoyed of you?
He cannot be annoyed with me.
Do you go to him as you used to?
We still communicate.
When was the last time you communicated with him?
Oh, I don't have that off-head. I don't really have that off-head.
After the allegations were made?
After the allegations were made? Yes. But I think it was the initial part. In fact, when they accused him that they believed that the recording was done in his house, he called me as a junior brother. I went to him, and he put that question to me. And I said, senior bro, I have my code of ethics that I operate with. I cannot record in your house because your house is a safe place for me and for whoever comes here from our family. So I operate within certain rules. So long as the AG kept coming to your house to engage me, he was safe. I couldn't do anything. But he went out of his way because he couldn't get what he wanted in your house. And now he was engaging me one-on-one, direct on phone. And in that way, it's an open field. The jungle is neutral. So I had the right to execute my skill. But in Yoni's house, I couldn't do it because it's a family. There are certain rules that you must apply in family meetings. You can't break those rules. No. So Justice Yoni Kolendi house, nothing was ever recorded.
The case is still under subject, so we'll leave it here. We hope to see you next Monday.
How would you rate your own performance today against prosecution?
Well, one particular aspect that took me aback was the clear ignorance of the Attorney General on what is ISO certification. In fact, the Attorney General was arguing that the ISO certification is an incorporating registration, which means that Big C was incorporated in 2015. That's why he was claiming, using that. And I tried to educate him that that is not an incorporation certificate. Because to incorporate a company, it must be done by a sovereign nation that have laws to incorporate companies. But ISO certification is a certification by international standard organization that satisfy manufacturing companies and private companies when they are manufacturing products about their quality standards. So, and it's renewed yearly. So seeing ISO 2015 doesn't mean that Big C was registered in 2015. And even the document you brought yourself, under it is latest issue, recertification. It tells you that it's being renewed every year. And the man was still swimming in his ignorance and wouldn't admit that a private company or a private organization cannot create a company to be in existence in a sovereign nation without going through the laws of that country. I don't need to teach him that. But the man was so ignorant about what is an ISO, a whole state, a whole attorney general of a nation. Just as I was educating him on an LC, on the audio recording, I've been educating this young man. But the man's ignorance is just beyond unbelievable. He wouldn't accept it because of his arrogance.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your performance today?
Oh, well, you have to rate my performance. I cannot mark myself.
Thank you very much.
But I just want to say that I'm still in shock that the one who advises government on all legal matters, on all transactions and everything, doesn't understand what is an ISO. And he thinks that an ISO certificate is an... That is serious. It's just a normal standardization of when you are manufacturing and you want to use a certain standard quality and all those things. You buy products, they are stated there. And when you buy a product and you see ISO certification, it means the company's product has hit a certain quality. It doesn't mean that that was when the company was registered and incorporated. There's ignorance, and you are in court and you want to jail somebody like me who has been educating you. It's strange.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, so you welcome back to the pause, and we've had a dose of legal issues so far, and we're into the second half of the show. But we're also keeping an eye on what is happening in Parliament, Katie Hammond and the LI to regulate cement pricing, and also there's also an ongoing meeting between the Electoral Commission chair and some civil society organizations. But let's talk about something that has been ongoing. There appears to be no end in sight. They are under training to become teachers and help train the next batch of students of the country, experts, workforce, and industry leaders. But the training has faced significant challenges such as funding and infrastructure. That situation, though, is worse now as their teachers have abandoned the classroom over poor working conditions. They are now resorted to learning on their own in the absence of their teachers. At the Accra College of Education, academic activities are at a standstill after 14 days of strike. At the Wesley College of Education in Kumasi, academic activities have also significantly disrupted. We'll be hearing from the leadership of the students, lecturers, and the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission, GTEC. Right now, let's speak to my colleagues who've been to some of these colleges. Let's start here from Accra. Kenneth Jesse joins us with more. So, Kenneth, you were out and about. What did you find at the Accra College of Education?
Well, Elton, at the Accra College of Education, what we found was that there were, especially people there, there were not a lot of people there because we're told that most of them have left to their homes because they cannot afford to live on campus. Because the strike has persisted for long, they are scared that the academic calendar could be stretched further and the finances that they budgeted to the place could be exhausted if they continue to stay on campus. Now, those who have remained on campus have also complained that they're finding it hard to study. Their academic activities have been severely impacted, especially the final year students who have complained that they are finishing school in September. And if this strike continues to drag for a long time. They're scared that they will be compelled to finish somewhere in December. Now, the SRC president, who I spoke with, also did indicate that most of the students have been trooping into his office asking for money to survive on campus, because the more idle they are, the more money they need to keep them going. So these are some of the issues that we found on campus. It's both academics and finances.
All right, so, thank you so much, Kenneth, for that update from the Accra College of Education. Let me see if I can also bring in Nana Boachi Yadom, who was also at the Wesley College in Kumasi. Nana Boachi, if you can hear me, what did you find on your tour of the college?
Well, Elton, when we visited the Wesley College of Education, we realized that the prolonged strike by CTAC is really biting hard on academic activities on the College of Education campus. Most of the students are left to roam on campus. Some of them were sitting under trees as their classrooms are being locked. We engaged some of them, and they are complaining bitterly about the fact that the strike is delaying a lot of academic activities that had to be held some time ago in the previous weeks. But then as the strike continues, they are left, their hopes are left in the balance, as they even fear that their examination would be postponed. Now they are waiting upon the College of Education administration to say a word or two to them as CTAC engages the NLC this very afternoon. They are also waiting for the outcome of that particular meeting. But then on the College of Education campus in Kumasi, we realized that most of these students are left stranded, with many of them sitting under trees awaiting the final outcome of the engagement between the National Labour Commission and CTAC. All right, Nana Boachi Yadom, thank you so much for that update. Now let me come to the studio, because Swale Razak is the president of the Teacher Trainees Association of Ghana, and of course also be speaking to Larry Agbado, editor, Teacher Education Journal. So Swale, how is this impacting on your academic pursuit?
Yes, thank you. The strike action that has been embarked on by members of CTAC on the 14th of this month is really disrupting academic activities in all the colleges of education. Come to think of it, 18th of this month, teacher trainees were expected, those who had had issues with their academic results were expected to have their supplementary examinations on the 18th of this month. That has not come on because of this strike action. Other activities that include orientation, activities for level 300 and level 400, for them to go and undertake their micro teaching, and then also their field experience by the level 400s have come to a halt because of this strike activity. So if you long and short of it all, this strike is really impacting all the colleges of education, and trainees are really feeling its effects. And
as you heard one of my colleagues say, Kenneth, he says that September would be hot for, is it graduation?
Yes, September 7th is actually scheduled with the academic calendar for all colleges, the level 400, to complete the whole program. So on September 7th, they would have completed the whole program, and then we will now be thinking of licensure and then graduation, and then they can go to the job market. But as we talk now, because of the CTAC strike action, which has been in session since the 14th of this month, and entering into the second week, would really affect the academic calendar. And should that happen, the September 7th, we fear that it might have to be postponed.
I remember a year or two when they embarked on a similar one, the SRC held a news conference asking government to meet the demands of their lecturers so that they can come back to the classroom to work. There was some kind of a resolution, but not fully. The reason why we are back to the same situation now. On campus, in the absence of your lecturers, how are your students? How are they putting themselves in readiness so that in case they come back, they will be able to face their academic challenges?
Yes, of course. If you go across all the colleges of education, students are left stranded. Others have had to be taking their colleagues in 1 or 2 group studies. We recently released an update to all our constituents, urging them that they should use this particular time to engage in group discussions and also engage each other in academic activities, as we all hope and pray that CTAC, the membership of CTAC, will call off this strike and be back to the classrooms as soon as possible.
So, Swale, I'll let you hold on there. I don't know whether we have Agbadu on the line, the editor of the Education Journal, so that we can also find out what it makes of this. But until we do that, so what will be your appeal to government as the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission, the National Labour Commission, find a way to resolve this matter? We understand there's ongoing a meeting there. Yes,
that is true. Actually, since the declaration, since we received notice from the membership of CTAC on this strike matter on the 14th, we've engaged with the leadership of PRINCOF. We've had engagement with the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission. We've equally gone to the Fair Wages and Salaries Commission as leadership to entreat them to fast-track the process, to ensure that our lecturers are back to the classrooms as soon as possible. We are always urging the government, as much as possible, they should try and meet the demands of the membership of CTAC, because should this strike prolong, our members would be affected. Feel the effect much.
All right, so Larry, I mean, you are editor of the Teachers Education Journal. What do you make of what is happening? I mean, these matters never get resolved completely.
Thank you very much, Elton. Just as you said, with your introduction, the colleges faced quite a number of challenges over the years. For quite a number of years now, I think this is one of the periods that they have all their students on campus at the same time. And having all students on campus at the same time, that we thought, okay, the academic calendar will have gone very smoothly for them. Then just as they were about to commence the second semester of the academic year, this CTAC strike comes hard to hit them. It's quite a tough one, looking at what the colleges are going through or have been going through over the years. But if you also look at the concerns of CTAC, you realize that these are very genuine concerns that they have. The colleges, upon their migration to tertiary institutions, the tutors are demanding for better conditions of service. And I think NLC in the past had awarded them some compensations as well that they feel it's been long overdue. So their concerns are also quite genuine. And I think it would just be fair for government to come to the aid of the colleges and then see how best these issues can be addressed as soon as possible to restore back academic activities into the colleges.
Larry, I mean, because we don't have much time, because you have been writing about teachers' issues in your paper or your magazine, I mean, look at it this way. In terms of the agency that government is expected to attach to matters relating to teachers, teacher trainees, over the period we've heard about non-payment of the allowances, I mean, infrastructural issues. Even look at CTAC. This is not the first time they are back on the strike. They went, there was intervention, they went back to the classroom, the matter was not fully resolved, now they are on. Even the attachment of some seriousness to their issues, it leaves much to be desired. What do you make of this?
I've always said that government over the years has not prioritized teacher education, specifically with colleges of education. If you look at the attention that government has over the years given to our senior high schools as a result of the introduction of the free senior high school, if we had even just 10% of that attention or priority given to the colleges, I'm sure the colleges will have gone far. Though we've had some transformation in the colleges, but some of these issues that keeps coming up, I'm sure anyone in Ghana will get to know that issues of CTAC strike is not something new again, because almost every time they're always on strike. Almost every time they're always on strike. So you ask yourself, for how long will it take for their concerns to be heard and addressed once and for all? Of course, we hear other unions, other groups going on strike, UTAG and the rest, but this CTAG one looks like it's now become a norm or a tradition that anytime colleges are about to begin a semester or begin an academic year, they always hit hard by these issues of strike. The colleges are already struggling. As you speak, if you speak to any of the managers of the colleges, the principals, they will tell you, even their reopening had to be delayed for 1 week because their managers are struggling to use 6 cedis, 50 pesos to feed them 3 times a day. And now these students have been on campus for 2 weeks and they are being fed. but no academic activity is ongoing. So these 2 weeks that they've been fed, and nothing has happened. When they call off the strike, what is going to be happening to the 2 weeks that have been lost? You see, so I just feel that government as a whole has not attached a certain level of priority to issues of the colleges of education, and it's quite worrying.
All right, thank you so much, Larry, for your contribution to this discussion. Let me come back to the studio. Razak is here. So your principals, what are they also doing to keep the schools running?
Yes, our principals have been feeding us from the allowances that the government do pay us with. That's the 400 Ghana cedis. They pick a component of it, and then they manage it with the feeding. Like Mr. Larry Agbo said, the principals have been feeding us with 50 pesos for now. 50 pesos a day for a day.
Oh,
for all the 3 meals that we have.
So your breakfast, your lunch, and supper.
Yes.
Is 6 cedis.
6 cedis.
50 pesos for a day.
And then.
What kind of food are you fed with?
Well, they just feed us with. Sometimes you go in and then you have rice and beans, and then you go in. We have sometimes beans, and then they'll get you a porridge in the morning. But even with this 50 pesos, it has our component have got to be slashed to add to the 50 pesos. So they pick a bit from the component that comes to the trainee to add that to the principals, so that they will be able to feed the colleges a little. Now, come to think of
your principals must be magicians to be feeding you 3 times a day with 6 Ghana cedis, 50 pesos.
Yes, we've always been appealing to the government to increase the allowance, so that the feeding component that goes to the principals would also increase, so that they would be able to feed us well on the campuses. But we've started. My predecessor had to write letter to the ministries that we have not seen any results. We are still going to the ministry almost all the time to seek for an increment that we are not seeing any results, and we hope that they would give us a listening ear too, because it's really not helping. Come to think of the new policy that have been rolled out in all the colleges of education, level 400 have had to stay outside the campus, the college community, whilst commuting to the various schools for their academic activities. Now, as I talk to you now, level 400 students feed themselves. They are living in rented apartments, and they have to go to their schools. And then CTAC strike have come to hit. So our students, we as students, are just in the house, especially level 400 students, without academic activities ongoing, and then they are depleting their pockets. And then these
matters have also come to make it even worse. But the latest on this, as we have picked, is that CTAC, together with the other relevant bodies, including the National Labour Commission, they are locked up in the meeting trying to resolve this matter once and for all. The hope is that after this meeting, there will be a roadmap that will lead to permanent resolution of the matters that CTAC have. But Raza, before I let you go, is that the only challenges you face?
No, that's not actually the challenge we face in the colleges of education. Like Mr. Larry rightly kept it. In the colleges of education, we are faced with infrastructure deficit in the colleges of education. If you come to my college per se, we don't even have a
Which college is this?
That is Tamale College of Education. We don't even have a well-equipped laboratory for computer laboratory and then science laboratory for students to do practicals. And these are teachers that will complete from these colleges, and then we come to the basic schools to teach the students that we have in the various basic schools. Also, if you come to the colleges of education, like I told you, level 400 have had to stay outside the campus, whilst coming to the campus for academic activities. Taking care of
your own accommodation and feeding themselves.
Yes, you feed them yourselves. And there's nothing to cushion yourself. The allowances that are being given to us are too mega. We are appealing to the government to increase the allowance so that these students would have a buffer, so that they can always rely on, so that the academic activities will go on well in the colleges of education. Even the first semester that we just finished, the allowance component that was paid to that effect was only 2 months out of the 4 months we spent in the first semester. We are still urging and appealing to the government to settle the remaining 2 months arrears, so that students will have something little to depend on in this
very, very difficult time. Thank you so much for coming to Swali Razak, is President Teachers Trainees Association of Ghana. Again, we are keeping an eye on this matter because the National Labour Commission is engaging CTAC leadership, and then they are hoping that they will resolve this matter once and for all. This is a pause here on Joy News. Now, let me take you outside the shores of Ghana, and let's talk about Julian Assange, the whistleblower behind WikiLeaks. Now, he has left the UK after striking a plea deal with US prosecutors. The deal ends a legal saga stretching back to 2010, which had seen Assange detained in the UK, awaiting possible extradition to the United States of America. For more, here's Arthur Sullivan from GW in Berlin. So, Arthur, remind our viewers who is Julian Assange and how significant is this news?
So Julian Assange is an Australian publisher and journalist and activist who became very prominent in the mid-2000s when he set up an organisation called WikiLeaks. That was primarily a website and a media organisation which published leaked documents and other classified information which it deemed to be of important public interest. Now, Assange was an extremely accomplished hacker for many years, and he had used those skills to access information, and he had also successfully encouraged whistleblowers to give him other sensitive information. Now, the big moment came in 2010 when WikiLeaks released a video showing a US helicopter killing unarmed Iraqi civilians in Baghdad. Now, that put Assange on a serious collision course with the US government, and later that year, many more sensitive US government documents were released by WikiLeaks. So for years, US authorities sought Assange's extradition on espionage charges. They said he was central to, quote, one of the largest compromises of classified information in the history of the United States. So this news of a plea deal allowing Assange to return to his native Australia is hugely significant. It brings to an end a 14-year legal saga between what is the world's most powerful government and arguably the world's most influential leaker of sensitive government information.
So Arthur, why has this happened?
It was a mixture of political pressure, diplomacy, and eventually the law, which allowed Assange to leave the UK and return home. And it was really in 2022 when this process began, because that year, Assange's native Australia, they elected a new centre-left government led by a new Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese. And while he said that he did not support everything Assange had done, he also made it clear that he felt enough was enough and that it was time for him to be a free man and have the option to return home if he wished. So behind closed doors, he began a campaign of securing Assange's release from prison in the UK and trying to find a way to reach an agreement with the US. So there was various lobbying which took place. Australian MPs travelled to Washington, they spoke to the Congress, they spoke to President Biden. But then crucially, the big moment really came earlier this year when the UK High Court, they ruled that Assange could launch an appeal against those attempts to extradite him. And crucially, that ruling included the idea that Assange could potentially argue that he could use the US constitutional First Amendment right to free speech as a defence. So that put the pressure on for a deal to be reached, and the US ultimately agreed to drop most of the charges if Assange would agree to plead guilty to one charge, that being conspiracy to obtain classified information linked to US national defence. So that was the way he ultimately got released. It was deemed that for that charge he had already served enough time in prison in the UK, and so that's why he is now a free man.
Now, I'm very interested in what Assange will do now.
That's the big question. He is due to arrive in Australia on Wednesday. He has already begun his journey home. It's not clear what he's going to do now. I mean, given that he has for 14 years effectively been incarcerated, first of his own volition while he sheltered at the Ecuadorian embassy in London, and then for a few years after that in a UK jail, it's likely that he would probably like some time to first of all recover, enjoy his freedom, and indeed spend time with his family, because he did father 2 children with his wife Stella while he was in prison, and he has still never met them outside of a prison setting. Now, the big question really is whether or not Assange will resume his activities with WikiLeaks and as a publisher of sensitive classified information. Given his background and his long history of doing so, it's hard to imagine that he's going to simply retire to a quiet life. But also, given the extent of the legal challenges that he has faced and the nature of this plea deal, it's possible that he may steer clear of the kind of work that got him in so much trouble in the past. Now, he is due to hold a press conference after he lands in Australia, and there, you would imagine, he will reveal some information about what the future holds for him.
All right, Arthur Sullivan is with our partners at DWTV in Germany. Folks, that's our show for today. For more stories, log on to our website, myjoyonline.com, for more. And the stories on myjoyonline.com ambulance case, some Central Region Chief show up in court to support to force him. High Court set July 2nd for Amewu to testify in South election denial case. Bill to regulate cement prices will be laid passed before Parliament adjourns. That's the assurance coming from the Trade Minister, Katie Hammond. Folks, that's our show for today. We have a date tomorrow, Friday, for the weekend edition of The Pulse. Until then, whatever you are up to in the hours ahead, I do hope it's profitable. Take care of yourself. We've got latest on this Trade Ministries, LI. We've got something from the Electoral Commission, all coming your way on Top Story or News Night on Joy 99.7 FM, of course, on Joy News Prime at 7 p.m. with Kojo Brace. Until then, see you tomorrow. My name is Elton Robbie. Have a good evening.